You're listening to the all-new KBLU radio network. That's the Blue Raven Network. Often duplicated, but never replicated. You're listening to the all-new KBLU radio network. That's the Blue Raven Network.
Often duplicated, never replicated. You're listening to the all-new KBLU radio network, Blue Raven Network.
The world of 1916 was complex, or the world of 1945 was complex. The world of 2016 is intensely complex. You'll be dealing with terrorists, you'll be dealing with hybrid armies, you'll be dealing with little green men, you're going to be dealing with tribes, you'll be dealing with national leaders and local leaders, you'll be dealing with politics and economics, you'll be dealing with direct fire and indirect fire. And you're going to be dealing with it all. And it's all going to be dealt with simultaneously.
Scott Hensler, Tinfoil Hat Club. December 21st, 2016. I was able to confirm today the expansion that I wanted to do for 2017. It's very vital that as much information as possible gets out to as many people, and it looks like I'm going to be able to do that. And I want to thank those who have been supporting me, that has been capable. The capability of this has been because of you, and so I thank you. And so I've got a lot of work to do. I'm going to be moving this facility to another. Again, hopefully, if everything works out, the internet will be a much better connection, broader band, and I'll be able to expand and do those things I've been wanting to do. I've been very limited here in this office, and it's been very trying. But so more broadcast. Again, I want to get back onto Mixler, start doing YouTube live streams. You know, I've been doing some of the videos, which is in part mostly the broadcast, but along with pictures to better orchestrate what I'm talking about. And again, for conferences and training, there's a facility on site that is fairly large. And so I'm going to be working on that to see what I can do. So I'll be inviting people to come up. All right? So anyways, you know, the coming events that are coming for 2017 are going to dictate your life. Now, the question is, you know, where does Trump fall into all of this? What is he going to do? And the reason I ask is because, like tonight, the Blue Light Special, the name of the show, some of you remember Kmart and their Blue Light Special, and supposedly they've returned with this, just like Jack in the Box went away for a while and then he came back. But the point of it is that the color blue and some of the other things, as I go through tonight, give you an indication to the occult meanings, the colors. And again, we've talked about Trump being the occult. He's, you know, basically in the Masonic lodges. Now, when we talk about that, we're we're discussing individuals that, if they're human, then they have sworn an allegiance and alliance to Lucifer, especially in the higher degrees. So, you know, I would like to see Trump be one that was going to pull us out of this, but you need to remember, anyone that's going to get in his position to come into office, do you think that the Luciferian doctrine, those who have been working at this for thousands of years, is going to let one person spoil the whole thing? So just like Obama, bred, born, raised, trained, indoctrinated to do what he does. I know you don't like to hear that, but I'm sorry. Remember, you know, I deal with demons all day long. I deal with demon-possessed people. I deal with demon-infected people. I deal with people with multiple personalities, satanic ritually abused. And so I've seen the nature of the beast. And I'm sorry, I'm very skeptical about anybody in that position. So anyways, Project BlueBeam, again, is going to be part of what I'm going to be talking about tonight. And again, you know, the Illuminati, the New World Order, those who wish to implement their tyranny onto us. This is one of the avenues of doing such a thing, which is all really based in deception. So Project BlueBeam and its debut is just around the corner. Okay. Now, there's been some sightings already. There's been some coronas. There's been some ionizations. There's been optical illusions of you know, basically cities in the sky and so forth. Well, you know, is that Project BlueBeam, or is that actually a dimension opening up? Well, could be either. But you know, with HARRP in itself now, HARRP, you know, supposedly has been turned over to the University of Alaska. Okay, well, so what? Okay, so they can tweak it and do a little more what they want to do, but the point of it is it still will always be under the control of DARRPA, the Pentagon, or the CIA, whoever wishes to use it for whatever. Now remember, too, that it was a training tool. It was an experiment. It was one to verify frequencies, bandwidths, modulation, power, effects, cause and effect. And so with all the data that they've gathered, they really don't even need it anymore, because everything's been transferred over to other locations, satellites, other means. You know, again, the chemtrails are all part of this. So even if HARRP is out of commission, it doesn't mean that it's going away. All right? So they've already achieved what they wanted to achieve, okay? And that primarily was weather modifications, okay, earthquakes, mind control, the ability for the creation of hive mentality. Again, this falls under psychotronic warfare, and I've been talking a lot about that, training a lot about it, teaching a lot about it, and the emails that I've been getting, I've apparently been hitting home, because a lot of people have come out of the woodwork that have been dealing with it. Now, Monday, I was trying to make a distinguishing baseline to whether it's demonic or whether it is synthetic psychotronic demonic activity. Is it one or the other? Now, since most of you have not been through deliverance and you have not had the curses broke off, I'm just going to flat out say it's going to be both. It isn't going to just be one or the other. Now, there are those who, of course, prior to the implementation of Psychotronics, that it was all demon and all curses. But now with the onset of this, the onslaught of this, that we now are dealing with both. All right? So what is Project BlueBeam? Well, it's a earth-to-sky optical projection illusion. Okay, now it can also be from satellite optical projection illusion, diffractions, refractions, everything that is necessary to take light, bend it, to separate it into its colors, to bring it back together again, to give a backdrop, a media, which to project on. Okay, so it's a full visual light spectrum using radio waves, otherwise electromagnetics, to influence the atmosphere. Okay? Now, in the atmosphere, we have argon, helium, nitrogen, oxygen, okay, all the basic gases, Now, they're just in percentages, and our atmosphere, our oxygen, as we call it, is actually made up of all these. I think oxygen is somewhere between 21.3 or something like that. I forget. It's been so long. You go up a little bit, it becomes flammable. You go down a little bit, we don't function. That's how tight that is. So obviously there's a divine intervention to keep things as they are. Now, I was very familiar with plasma. I back in the old days, I used to repair transmitters, a service tech, and then when I worked at Motorola, I ended up working on plasma etching machines. Maybe some of you know about this in the semiconductor. And so this is a combination of specialty gases being energized by radio waves, and through the ionization, the corona, the plasma that's generated, this can actually etch. It's the excitement of the gases taking the electrons in at super speed and smashing them in just like a sandblaster. And because of the electrical property difference between the two, then there can be a separation breakdown. So everything that I just described is also fully capable of happening in the atmosphere, but obviously in order to do that, you need a great deal of power. Now, I've worked on transmitters as high as 10 kW. There were some available that were 100,000 watts. Those were so big you literally could walk into the cabinet in which it was in. But either way, these things, depending on the frequency, can have a very heavy influence on the human body, the human mind, and even the surroundings. Now, you know that you can cook food in microwave. I've described that before, that anything that has moisture in it is resistive to radio waves, just like the waters, the oceans, and so forth. And whenever you have resistance, you have friction. When you have friction, you have heat, and hence you have a microwave oven. So the human body, the human mind is basically the same thing. And so we are also electrical chemical with our mind, the way that it fires, the electrical impulses, EKGs can measure the heart through the electrical that is generated when the heart pumps. And through wires that are very sensitive can then, interpret it. Well, if you take it to a grand scale and you take it to a double-duty network such as cell phones and other communications that I've talked about before that have to do with public service and so forth, and then bring another stimulation in of high power, by doing so, then you're able to monitor, you're able to influence, you're able to do those things that we call psychotronics. Okay? So another thing that you've witnessed before, especially those in the north, and I've seen it before, where was I at? I was in Buffalo, New York, the first time that I witnessed aurora borealis. And of course those are known as the northern lights. And through, the influences of sunspots, of solar flares, of the electrical magnetic waves that come out of the sun, and other means, that there's a stimulation, there's an ionization that takes place, a plasma, that's generated in the heavens, in the atmosphere. And so we see it visually. Now you need to understand that our visual spectrum is fairly narrow compared to the whole spectrum in itself, all the way from basic sound waves that are generated, all the way up through gamma, X-ray, those areas. So in the middle somewhere is where we can visually see, and it's not very, very wide. We've got infrared on the lower end, we've got ultraviolet on the upper. That's why ultraviolet is dangerous to us. Same thing with X-rays. Now, anything that is going to pass through a substance at a high velocity, and several of them, meaning high power, it's going to do disruptions. And so when that takes place, all the gases that I mentioned before, that they're stimulated. The ionization takes place. Now, that's also a great opportunity for ham radio operators. There's backscatter, there's meteor shower communications, there's all kinds of things that will bounce radio waves. And so when you go at the lower frequencies, you're able to do things you wouldn't normally be able to do. Now, that's part of SCIP. If some of you guys, are familiar with CB, there's times you can talk to other states, other towns, but you can't get across the street with it. Well, that's called SCIP, and that, again, has to do with ionospheric conditions. The F layer, the H, and so forth being combined together at different times, different temperatures, and different sun influences. And so what they've done with Project BlueBeam is they've taken advantage of all that. They've tweaked it in. And with the high-powered of those things that are land-based, and then the mirror reflection of those of satellites even generated with not just visible light, but also laser, because that too can be like a prism. The color spectrums of them can be a wider bandwidth to give depth, texture, intensities, all of the things that you control very much like a color TV. And if you are old enough, you remember when color TV came out. And in order to have color versus black and white, a higher amount of electricity needs to be generated. So they had a thing in the TVs they called a flyback transformer. And basically it was the means through simplicity without iron core to be able to produce a very high amount of electricity, around 40 kV, 40,000 volts, that while in the picture tube would give a higher stimulation in order for the color contrast to come through. And then through electron beam, then they're able to paint the picture on the phosphorus screen. So in reality, what we're seeing in the heavens with Project BlueBeam is a recreation of that through the means necessary, whatever it takes, whatever they've come up with. They've got proprietary confidential information, secrecy, those even in patents you can't even access to a degree because it's under the military. And by using microwave, infrared, ultraviolet, and even white light, as I mentioned of the spectrum, the blues, the reds, the greens, the yellows, in combination to give a visual refraction index. Some of you might remember the color wheel. I used the color wheel when I was doing electronics for resistor reading, and it's still the same thing. And when you take several different colors together and combine them together, you get different colors. And so like a prism, the extraction of colors and its bands combining. So this achieves, again, those things of the base that are able to send up the power, and then from the satellites able to come in from a different angle to give a omni visual, a 3D, depth, height, width, azimuth, all of the things necessary to give an image in the sky that gives you the appearance of either a 200-foot tall Jesus. You remember, or what was his name? Somebody was mentioning about a 200-foot Jesus. Well, what do you think he was talking about? Everyone thought he was nuts, right? Well, I'm sorry. No, you got to remember these guys are all in bed with this. And so anything from UFOs to a 200-foot tall Jesus could be created. And some of these things, again, you've seen as cities in the sky, okay? Now, again, as we introduce the cell phone technology, the double duty, otherwise known as Psychotronics, for mind control, so now you have visual stimulation in the heavens, okay, full visual, with synthetic audio being generated by the Psychotronics. So you'll literally think you can hear. Now, there's as long as there's something of a media to vibrate, that in and itself, if it's stimulated with the right pitch, the right frequency, that it too can generate audio. And so whether it's a synthetic through Psychotronics in your mind, and I did a show last week on that, and very, very detailed about the auditory nerves and how that all is affected by electronics, that either way, synthetic visual can be generated as well. So you could literally see things in your mind, hear things in your mind that do not exist. But this is a true visual that's projected into the sky. That is what Project BlueBeam is. So Project BlueBeam, in reality, is DARRPA. Okay, DARRPA does whatever it wants to. It's a black hole project. Millions of dollars, billions of dollars are brought into it. So it isn't just optics included in this. We're also talking about psychotronics of mind control. Now, I did quite a bit of teaching on MONTAUK, and I talked about the MONTAUK chair and the people who were in the MONTAUK chair to astral project electronics is what I mean, to be able to, instead of traveling themselves, they would use electronic means. So hence they were able to go into the other dimensions selectively, not just by the will of the individual, but through technology. So in reality, when it comes to Project BlueBeam, then my guess is that someone very much like the MONTAUK chair is there then projecting into the sky exactly what they're seeing so they can project it. Now this, again, the splitting of the reality and the dimensions of what we would normally see. Now, I also mentioned in the MONTAUK that what they were doing when this was taking place, because they already had Cray computers, Cray 1s and 2s, I think it was, at the time, that they were recording everything. So now you have someone with psychic abilities, which in reality is clairvoyance, divination, which we are forbidden to do such things, and this is one of the reasons why, and that they were recording it, and then by feeding that into artificial intelligence, they then have a artificial psychic, one under computer control. So now hence you have the beast. Do you understand? Now, since Lucifer is not omnipresent and cannot be in all places at one time, this is how it is achieved. So now you have either a reptilian or a demon-possessed individual who's sitting in something like a MONTAUK chair, who is controlled under the demonic influences of Lucifer. Hence, you have a broadcast station of Lucifer. Do you understand? I bet you no one told you that. I bet you can't find that on the internet anywhere. I bet you the churches aren't talking about that. Well, how would I know that? Well, I tell you what, I go toe-to-toe with the demons every day. I see what they do. I come from an engineering background. I know how this is all put together, and this is how I see it. So whether it is a fact or not, well, I guess we're going to find out. But I'm telling you right now, just be aware that those things that you see, those things you hear, those things you're experiencing may not be necessarily really happening. All right? All right, so in reality, what are we going to have? What was the book I wrote? Second Heaven Invasion. Meaning the spirit realm is really going to fracture open and all the demonic in it is going to come out. Now, with time travel, with wormholes and so forth, still was, the capability was back in MONTAUK. That again, with this, even with Project BlueBeams, which is several projects together, it isn't just the optical illusion in the sky. Okay, and as I get into a little bit further, I want to bring CERN into this because I made the CERN connection with MONTAUK. So in either case, what we have is the ability with a computer, with psychic knowledge, psychic abilities, with electronic means, now fracturing the heavens, splitting open the spirit realm, now letting in those things we did not want. Okay, hence again we have second heaven invasion. So this is what I believe they have planned for 2017. Again, God's in control. Whether they're going to be able to achieve it or not, I don't know. But what are they trying to achieve? They're trying to achieve mass panic. Okay? When you have mass panic, then you have the ability to round up those individuals, basically terrorism, pain compliant, someone who is willing to surrender their rights in order for safety. Hence, again, we had 9/11. So with FEMA roundups made easy because of fear, okay, unfortunately. So this is 3D on steroids. So should we fear this? No. Should we be concerned? Yes. Why? All right, you may be aware, of the situation, you may be delivered, you may be covered in the blood. But you need to remember that the masses of people out there are not. They are not aware. They are not delivered. They are not covered in the blood. There's many people who are demon-possessed, demonized. There are many people under the curse. Many of them have a spirit of fear. So even though you've got it together, you know what to do, the Holy Spirit's speaking to you, you've rolled your sleeves up and you come out swinging, what about the guy to the right? What about the woman to your left? Remember, we do not have power and authority over humans. So what's the mass panic about? Well, unfortunately, just, like the soccer game that took place over in, London, where there was a mass, wave of people and there were people killed and crushed. Whenever you have masses running in one direction, you've got the running of the bulls, and there's no stopping them. And I believe that this is one of the avenues, one of the techniques to create what they want. So whatever you're going to do, the question is, what are they going to do? Terrorism, in its effect, because of being fear-based, is rooted in complete deception. And in fear and deception, you can literally get the masses to do what you want. All right? Meaning, this is not just as bad as it seems, it's really bad. Now, those things that we see before us, we need to test the spirit. We were told to do that in Scripture. Test the spirit. Is this real? Is this synthetic? Is it a demon? What do we have? Do we have a angel of light pretending to be divine? Do we have Lucifer? Do we have fallen angels? Do we have reptilians? Do we have, again, I'm calling reptilians laughing hyenas, and I'm calling those people who basically are narcissists, those who are part of the gang stalking, flying monkeys. So we have laughing hyenas and flying monkeys that are literally going to be the running of the bulls, because it's not going to end well for them either, ladies and gentlemen. You need to understand that those who have been in cooperation are nothing more than something they've shoved into the cannon. And when they light the fuse, all hell is going to break loose even on them. So causing masses to make bad decisions, turning everything over to the tormentors. So the very people who are claiming to be your savior are actually the ones implementing, puppeteering. They're the ones who are doing this. So in a sense, I guess we could call them handlers. So now we have handlers of the masses. Okay? Remember the term gaslighting? I use this with narcissists and those psychopaths and sociopaths and people with borderline personality, those who are altering your truth, your reality to cause you to question yourself, to even think that maybe you're losing it. So this in itself, the deception that takes place when you're questioning your own sanity, then you don't even believe in yourself. Okay, and what are you going to tend to do? You're going to tend to turn to someone else, drugs and alcohol. Some people will turn to sex, some people will turn to whatever, and even suicide to deal with the matter. Okay? So again, just as one person, whether they're narcissistic, psychopath, sociopath, or borderline, what we're seeing here, that's basically, I just described the Illuminati, they're gaslighting through Project BlueBeam, causing you to lose the reality, to double-check your sanity that you may possibly be insane. Okay? So through this is trickery, the deception, lies. What is this? Okay, when we cut through the weeds, what do we have? It's witchcraft. Witchcraft is mind control. Witchcraft is those things of influence of spiritual means, because if you have fear, you have not been given a spirit of fear, but a power and love and a sound mind, and so therefore you have demonic influences. Whenever you have demonic influences and control of the mind, you have witchcraft. All right, so Project BlueBeam is by definition witchcraft, gaslighting millions, if not billions, of people. Let's just break it down to what it is, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just bring the truth out here and describe that these are the people. This is where our tax dollars are going to. The CIA has been running drugs for years now, and so when Congress wouldn't fund the black holes, now they will now, but back then, like in the 60s and 70s, they went to drug running to fund the black op projects. Okay? So just like the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain, pushing buttons, pulling levers, this whole thing is smoke and mirrors. Now, smoke and mirrors comes from the original sense of the blue beam, the limelight, whenever they could put smoke onto the stage, and through mirrors and so forth, they could give the illusion that there were ghost-like things up on the stage. It was quite a feat for the 17 and 1800s. Really took place in the turn of the century, coming into the 1920s and so forth. I believe too that was one of the reasons for the mass interests in seances. If you look at the movies generated in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, there was a lot of seances in those movies. And so bringing the occult in, then we get into the 60s, and we've got Bewitched and all the others that come in. This was to desensitize you to the fact of, by divination and witchcraft, becoming part of everyday life. And again, with Project Paperclip bringing in the Nazis, bringing in MK Ultra, bringing in all this stuff that basically is Luciferianism through fallen angel technology being implemented in the CIA, into the Pentagon, into even private corporations, hence generating DARRPA. What do we have? We've got demon-possessed people and reptilians through fallen angel technology using humans to actually build the devices under the direction of those who are not of this world, basically. And when I say not of this world, I'm not talking about another planet, I'm talking about another dimension and or the seed of Lucifer. Okay, so demons get to enjoy your fear. Reptilians get to enjoy your destruction. Politicians, bankers, and the Illuminati get to enjoy your slavery, to enslave you, to do whatever they want to. When you're a, quote, slave, you're in bondage. And so, unfortunately, those who were slaves were horrifically sexually abused, So now let's just add one more factor to this whole thing, and it's CERN. Now, I've been talking a lot about CERN. I brought it in with MONTAUK, and then I did another show specifically to it. So the altering and changing of history, one more fashion of CERN, known as the Mandela effect. Again, what would this be compared to? Gaslighting. That's right, because now we know what the Word said. We knew what the Old Testament said. We knew what the New Testament said. And now these words are changed, and now we question our sanity. We question our ability for memorization, and so that's a form of gaslighting. And again, who's it in association with? That's right, narcissism. Again, those flying monkeys. All right. All right, and don't forget the dimensions that are being connected in or opened up, combined together, different dimensions where there are other creatures that we did not know of, that were never intended to be in this world, at least not in this time compared to Genesis, So a doorway even from two other planets, because I believe that on other planets that many of the fallen angels or whatever have been marooned there. Because though they were divine at one time, there was some angelic abilities that were taken from them. And so their ability to travel around the universe has been hampered. Now, it may not be completely across the board, but whatever the case is, now we are at threat of having things come to us that are not happy. You could imagine their own hell, not being able to do what they do. Could you imagine being an angel and being, in the presence of God and all the wonderful, beautiful things that are His creation, and then you pulled you did a stupid thing, you came into agreement with Lucifer, and next thing you know, you're crashing into a planet just like one of the pods from NASA that the parachute didn't quite work. And you look around, that would be kind of the same thing as Adam and Eve being cast into this dimension from the dimension of where the Garden of Eden was. Now, of course, you're not going to hear that from the church because many of the books that were available to us that told us this have been taken out. All right? So either way, we're going to be dealing with things that we have not dealt with before, at least, again, since the time of Genesis or before Genesis, because there are pre-Adamic situations. We're also told nothing new is under the sun, But in the reality and the facts of what we have before us today, a whole new circumstance is now being presented before us. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to react? And again, if you've been dealing in your life with fear, then you're fear-based, and your decisions that you've made and will continue to be made will be based from fear. And in that fear, you're always guaranteed to make the wrong decision. Many people have lost their lives on burning buildings and other situations because of panic, that they didn't, they should have went left when they went right. And instead of taking a breath and assessing the situation and stepping back and looking at the big picture, they just reacted. So when you react, you basically have a 50-50 on how it's going to turn out. All right? So in reality, that means in the spirit realm, the true angelic divine angels, the ones who were still in the corporate agreement with God, are working overtime. The ones that are messengers, the ones that are warriors, the ones that are here to be assigned to us, all right? So now you understand why there are millions and millions, if not billions, of angels, because it's a big job. This spirit realm is out of control, okay? The spirit realm. Now, God is still in control, and because of these angels working double duty, working overtime, they also have the job of putting the flying monkeys and the laughing hyenas back in the box. Do you understand that? I mentioned before that if you get a bunch of puppies and you put them in a box that has an open top, those little puppies aren't going to be in there very long. Well, their willingness and their, enthusiasm wants them to go experiment somewhere else, and so this is what we have in the spirit realm. Now, the other thing that we need to mention is that the corruption of man, there being Johnny Appleseed wanting to spread their seed for creation. So when we look at abductions, when we look at alien abductions, when we look at people that have just disappeared and then come back, and they talk about, being molested, they talk about being probed, their eggs and their sperm taken from them. Well, again, I think there's been cultures that have been done on these planets, or at least in some other location on this planet, and there may be some more revealing of New Schwabenland, those things of Antarctic, those things outside of what we normally know. Again, when we look at the flat Earth potential, then that opens up a whole new potential possibility. Okay. I will be addressing that. There's more than meets the eye in this whole situation. Okay, you need to remember that those who have been teaching us the history books, the things that have been basically shoved down our throats, have been under the control of the Luciferian agenda. Okay, so things are not as they appear. All right, so these things to be put back in the box is vital for now, but there's a time that things get to a point where, let's see, have you ever, has anyone ever over-pumped a tire? I had that happen one time. Or the tube failed early, quite a surprise. You think you're going to, you're getting the tire ready and you're going to go enjoy the day on a bike, and next thing you know, you're sitting on your rear end because something went pow. All right. So let's just look at the picture coming to 2017. Is Trump going to stop this? Okay, I know he's aware of it. Okay, is Trump going to at least expose it? Okay, has he talked about that? What about chemtrails? Okay, you need to remember chemtrails are very vital to Project BlueBeam. Okay, they have their part in it. All right, but they're double duty too. We also know that Morgellons disease, where things are under the skin, coming out of the skin, sicknesses, heavy metal poisoning, making basically us more susceptible to psychotronics. Remember I mentioned if you take my aluminum You know, they warn you not to put aluminum pots and things inside the microwave because what does it do? Well, it reflects it. But let's say that you take micro size, those things, particles within your body, that because aluminum is a very toxic metal in any quantity. It's also been linked to Alzheimer's and other diseases. So now we have beryllium, we have aluminum, we have other heavy metals that are in our system, in our foods we're ingesting. And so now when you pass radio waves through you, what are you going to do? You're going to start reacting, or the particles in you, the heavy metal particles, are going to start reacting. And so what's going to happen to your brain? Well, just like any time that you take, for instance, the metal balloons, you could go buy those aluminum-looking ones. Well, they've been outlawed in some places because when you let them go, they've been sputtered with aluminum. They have aluminum on the outside, that they can get up into electrical wires. So even the standard electrical wires that you have on the power poles that bring power to your house, and then even the high tension lines, when these things get in there, what do? They take the potential of the two wires and they short it out. And what do? You get a big flash cube. Well, what do you think is going to be happening in your brain when the radio waves pass through? Because now you have aluminum in your body. Do you understand? Same thing with your spinal cord, same thing with everything else. It's one of the objectives of this whole project, and it's very heinous. It's disgusting. There's no reason to ever put aluminum in foods, and they do that. Okay? So, again, is Trump going to do anything about this? Morgellons disease, heavy metals, Psychotronics? Well, we shall see. We shall see. And I already know what the answer is, and I think you do too. So what about the FEMA camps? Is he going to shut them down? I already talked about that. So we need to understand that also around this country are billions of rounds of hollow point ammunition that have been stored all over the place, including Walmarts, including strip malls that have gone out of business and now are under the contract to basically be a munitions dump, a magazine for when the UN troops and the mercenaries come, they have a place to replenish their firearms. Just think about that. You can only carry so much with you, and now you have a stash you can go to and keep everyone moving. Because that's one of the things about military. You have to supply the troops. You don't get water to them. You don't get food to them. You don't get ammunition. You don't get fuel. You don't get those things necessary. They can't function. So if they're on the quest to shoot everything that moves, and they will be, it's going to take that many. So literally there's several rounds for every man, woman, and child available to the Blue Helmets, to the mercenaries right now at their fingertips to shoot American citizens. Okay? So also remember, though, that Trump has not taken office yet. Regardless of what he's promising, this can, again, just be smoke and mirrors to keep everyone. And then they're still trying to implement disgruntle to get everyone upset, to even do a coup. I can remember when I worked for Motorola, a gentleman who used to do the media, he was down, I think it was Malaysia, and there was a coup that took place, and they actually took over the Motorola he was at down there. And when he came back and told me about it, it was pretty frightening, because you've got people who are very upset. They've got guns in their hand. They don't know who's who, and of course you don't speak the language. It's hard to tell tell them who you are. So in either case, this is going to be an interesting year. Okay. So here's another thing: is with Obama's birth certificate, okay, it's fake, and again they're pushing to pull the more information about it being fake. So is Trump going to, when he takes office, is he then going to dissolve all the executive orders? Since Obama is fake, he's not a president, he's not a citizen, he never was qualified. He is an agent. He should be held on treason. He should be held as a spy. He should be absolutely taken to the cleaners on this. So is Trump going to do anything? So that means technically by law that everything that Obama has done as far as executive orders, I don't know, 1,000 something now, that in reality they're not legal, they're not binding, they are not standing. Okay? You need to remember, too, that when he was sworn in, he swore in on a Quran. Every time they went to do the Bible in public, both elections, something went wrong. It was by the book was incorrect and didn't have the standing to the judge who witnessed. So then they did it again. Well, they did it again in private on the Quran. Okay? So again, what is Trump going to do with that? Is he going to avoid all that? And then even if he did, just think of, oh man, I can't even imagine. Now, here's another thing. When it comes to Project BlueBeam, and we talk about the different colors of the spectrum, now, our flag, okay, red, white, and blue, blue, white, and red, whatever combination you want here, you'll notice that that like Trump and some of the others, and then we even had when Hillary came to, in her recognition that she didn't win the election, that her and her husband stood there, well, whatever he is, with purple, with sashes and their tie. And that is an indication of royalty, but it also indicates that they did not submit. Do you understand that? That otherwise, that they had achieved that there's another position for them. Okay, so they didn't lose. They were telling the public with their purple tie and the sash that she had around her neck that they were still in the game. You got to remember, they've got a daughter that they've been raising up, and well, I tell you what, wow, I just can't even imagine bringing that one up. They haven't gone away. Okay, they're, like I said, they're here to stay. So when it comes to red, white, and blue, we need to remember that red basically for Masonic. That's why we see Trump wearing red tie. This also means Satanism, also means the spilling of blood and rage. Okay? So this flag of ours, being based in the Masonic from day one, remember the 13 original colonies? Okay, and so what we have here with white, we have the Mason apron. Now that's that apron that they wear around their waist. Now, what you probably don't understand is during the ceremonies in the original, they were naked and they had the apron around them. So their man parts were covered, and there was a point in time that in the ceremony they would flash, okay, to indicate male. This was also the covering of the male member to be revealed in the times, just as it's called for them as they make their move. So again, these are all cult numbers. And when we get to blue, we talk about the Blue Lodge, and basically that's new members that still need to be indoctrinated. Okay, Royal Arch or the Archorite. Now we also have the Boaz pillars. We have the 9/11 left and right. Those are red and the blues colors here. So in either case, we need to understand that everything that we have before us, when Project BlueBeam does its thing, you'll be guaranteed that red, white, and blue is going to be right in the middle of all that. So established from Albert Pike is what red, white, blue was from, again, in his Morals and Dogma. Okay? If you haven't read Morals and Dogma, I recommend it. You'll see our past and our future come alive right before your very eyes. So you know what? I know it's hard to believe. I know it's hard to comprehend. And certainly if you try and talk to other people, they'll just literally think you're insane. They'll think you're nuts. Again, we need to take a step back. We need to understand that it's not what we believe, but it's what the basically demon-possessed individuals believe. Those of the Luciferian doctors, those of the Masonics, those of the Illuminati, those demon-possessed, demonized, and or reptilians, what do they believe? See, it's hard for us to comprehend their thought pattern. Whenever you're of a nature that you couldn't believe that somebody could do such a heinous crime, that's when these people flourish, because they're not expecting you to think that this person standing in front of you is as evil as they are. They know they have you. They got you hoodwinked. That's also a Masonic Luciferian Freemason term. So the point of it is whatever we see and it doesn't make sense to us, you know, the old saying, if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. Well, that's true. But it makes sense to them because they are evil. They are twisted. They are sick. They are psychopaths. So again, the fact that we can't comprehend it or believe it or want to believe it doesn't mean that it isn't true. Okay? So basically, it's what the bloodline of Lucifer believes. All right? Now, some of you, if you've seen the movie Lucy, I saw it, I don't know, about a year or so ago. Julie did a teaching on black goo. Okay, Lucy, if you haven't seen the movie, I don't want to talk too much about it. But black goo is involved in this. Basically, superhuman ability, divine intelligence, that through a blue liquid that in it achieves absolute with creation. Okay? Now, Lucy, or Lucifer, that's what it is, Lucy in the sky with diamonds and all that other stuff, that's what it meant. That Lucy in itself, through the movie, is showing the description through the black goo, through the ability of the manipulation of molecules that are beyond our comprehension in science, because this is something that is supernatural. So in its final stage of creation, basically with becoming one as a supercomputer, becoming one that in its infancy or infinite realization of artificial intelligence, that it achieves a godlike status. Okay? That's what the movie is about. It tells you everything that they're doing, everything that they've been planning, everything that they've been wanting to do. And it's quite an entertaining movie too, by the way. All right. Well, that's pretty much what I have. I want everyone to understand that I'm going to be moving locations and stuff. So as far as Friday to be announced, whether I'll do the show or not, for those who are listening, I'm going to try, but I've got a lot of work to do. I'm kind of a one-man show, taking care of business and getting things straight. I've got to get the other studio set up. It's quite a job. So we'll just see how it goes, but I will do what I can. Plus, I volunteered to help some other people do some things, so I kind of got over budgeted, over timed, and then I've got some people coming from out of state to be ministered to, so I've got my hands full. All right, so I'll be setting up the new studio, the new office, and again, anything from today on will have to be announced. Okay, so next week will be spotty on the shows, callbacks, and so forth. All right, as I just close out here, again, this year, the past 2 years actually have been quite a venture. The emails, the phone calls, the letters, the cards that I get really encourage me. I want to thank you for everything that you've done for me. It may be a little hard to comprehend the demonic realm. It may be hard to understand the concept of gang stalking. And so those who are listening that have not experienced this, maybe you move on and you won't listen anymore. But what's interesting is those that at one time, left the show and didn't listen anymore, now, unfortunately, they're being attacked, or now they're dealing with a situation, and now they're back, and now they're wanting the answers. They're going back to the old shows and listening. Now, I wish it were different. I wish that I didn't have to do any of this, but unfortunately, it is happening, and because it is, then I feel that something's got to be done. And I made a promise about 17 years ago, as I entered into, called the Deliverance Ministry. Now, let me also point out, too, that I do not associate myself with any church. I have tried. I've tried to do my best with so-called mainstream churches, and I won't have anything to do with them anymore. Okay? The book called the New Testament tells me to cast out demons, tells me to heal the sick, tells me to bind up the brokenhearted and set the captives free. And by the simplicity of the word and what I've been doing, I've been so chastised that it's absolutely part of almost like gaslighting or even gang stalking. And so, therefore, I can only conclude that these churches are actually in cahoots or in bed. Speaking of cahoots, I talked about kaput and poltergeist yesterday. But in either case, there's something wrong here. If what I read is something different than from what they read, then someone's wrong. If God's a God of order, not a God of disorder, then something's wrong. And so I have to assume that if Jesus tells me to cast out demons, then I'm to cast out demons. Matthew 28 is quite clear to continue those things until his return. And so by doing so, then we go toe-to-toe with evil. And you cannot negotiate with evil. You have to eradicate it. I've talked about this over and over and over again. So understand that what I'm doing here is trying to basically, in a locomotive, hit everything head on. Okay? Because if you have something that's very powerful, let me put it to a term. Okay. When I used to work with high voltage, there were special suits that we would wear because at any point in time, if there was a electrical short where two potentials came together, that the collective energy of voltage and amperage, known as wattage, that in its production of thermal, basically the arcing that takes place, the light that's generated, and the heat is so intense that it literally can blow the clothes right off of you. And so special clothing has to be worn, Kevlar, different others, asbestos, and it's rated in calories. So when you wear these suits, it's rated in how many calories. And it's interesting that they would do that, but I guess, that has to in relation to the expended energy on what it takes to achieve another level of spent energy. So in the calorie rating, then what I'm getting at is that I'm wearing these suits covered in the blood of Jesus, that its calorie rating is higher than Lucifer. So he is not going to blow the clothes off of me. I am not going to get burned. I am not going to get knocked on my rear end and never be able to see again because the flash of light was so blinding, or the sound was so intense that I'll have ringing in my ears for the rest of my life. Greater is he that is in me than he is in the world. And if I've been indoctrinated into Christ by believing onto him, and I'm told to have the power and authority to move forth, and then that's what I'm going to do. So understand, regardless if you're in the occult, whatever your situation is, that you're in this too. The difference is you're not wearing that protective clothing that has a high calorie rating. Do you understand? I've mentioned some people that Julie had befriended and so forth. They're already gone now. They're already dead. They had the YouTube, they had several other shows, and they're gone now. Well, they weren't believers. They didn't have the blood of Christ. Now, it doesn't mean I can be killed like anybody else. But because I am a bondservant of Jesus Christ, it's going to be on God's term, not Lucifer's term. That's a win-win for me. Because in the twinkling of the eye in the service of God, through Jesus Christ, then I'm with my Most High God. Life is a flash in the pan compared to eternity. All right? I just turned 60 not too long ago. All right? The greater part of my life is over with. I'm on the board going down the hill, sliding ever so fast. The toilet paper roll is getting smaller. So the time is short. I've only got so much that I can do in the time that I have left. But if I'm told to do something, then I'm going to do it. But I've also learned to pick my fights, pick my battles, and to pace myself, because I have worked hard and burnt myself out, and also when you try and work with people who really don't want to be delivered, you're not going to win. So when I say I pick my battles, I'm very conscious about those people that I work with. All right, well, I'm out of time here. God bless you for what you've been doing to help me. And I'm going to assure that I'm going to continue for 2017. In fact, I'm going to expand, and it's only because of you. God bless you, and thank you.
You're listening to the all-new KBLU radio network. That's the Blue Raven Network. Often duplicated, but never replicated. You're listening to the all-new KBLU radio network. That's the Blue Raven Network.
Often duplicated, never replicated. You're listening to the all-new KBLU radio network, Blue Raven Network.